The cheapest wines can usually be found at discounters, chains of shops that compete on price while using their purchasing power to reduce cost. One chain that knows the game better than most is Lidl. So today I'm going to revisit their wine selection in a blind tasting to find out whether there is such a thing as good and cheap wine. I know that most people don't care as much about wine as I do, and let's face it, that's probably a good thing. When I open a bottle, I want to experience something special, and that's why I don't really buy wine at Lidl, but many people do. They operate more than 11,500 stores in more than 30 countries and employ more than 376,000 people. The secret to their success is that they sell decent products at very low prices, which is great for consumers who aren't too picky or who don't really have a big budget for food. Wine suppliers that sell at the discounters are generally under a lot of pressure as they have to fulfill really high requirements in order to be listed at those chains. They still do it, as once you're listed, for example, at Lidl, you get immediate access to a very wide distribution network and you start selling tens of thousands of bottles very quickly. The amount of wine that is needed to stock all of the stores in one market also means that Lidl cannot really work with smaller and medium-sized wineries, but instead has to work with huge bottlers or very large wineries that are able to sell hundreds of thousands of bottles of the same wine. The quality at Lidl has improved over the decades, but I still haven't bought a bottle of wine there that I really wanted to drink over dinner. But maybe that changes today. My team has bought 8 wines and has spent 50 euros on them. I'm going to taste them blind, trying to identify them, and I'm going to tell you which ones are good and which ones taste like food. Nice rhyme. Let's go. So let's start off with wine number 1. Which is a still white wine. Okay, wine number 1 is slightly golden in color. It isn't very aromatic, but it has a distinct flavor profile. It smells of canned peach and banana, but yeah, not very aromatic. There's not really oak flavor coming through. Instead, it feels quite fruity. On the palate, it's kind of slightly bitter. There's a little bit of acidity, but not very high acidity. I would say more medium acidity. All in all, I gotta say it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a little bit boring. And for me, the question is always, do I really want to spend an evening with something boring just so that I have something in my glass? Or do I want something a little more entertaining? And well, yeah, for me, the choice is obvious, but I understand that not everyone needs that. And this is okay. So I'm going to rate this 81 points. I think it's a good white wine. It feels like a Chardonnay, maybe from a New World country, but without obvious oak influence. So yeah, it's all right. So let's have a look what it is. Wine number 1. What? Okay, this is a Sauvignon Blanc, so Sauvignon Blanc is a very successful grape variety that usually shows quite intense aromatic fruit flavor, green notes, a little bit of exotic fruit. It's always a bit of a mix of different flavors. And this just doesn't show that at all, I think. It's fruit driven, but it's kind of muted. So I think, well, there are definitely way more Sauvignon Blancs that are way more interesting and way more expressive than this one. But yeah, still, it's okay. It's okay, but it's not very Sauvignon-esque. So let's move on. Wine number 2, another white. So this is also golden in color, and it smells kind of similar as the previous wine. It also smells of banana. It does smell of honeydew melon. And now I wonder, is that typical for Sauvignon Blanc or for Chardonnay? On the palate, there's quite a lot more body and concentration. There's also some vanilla character coming through. At this price point, the wine was probably chipped, so they probably added toasted oak chips in order to give the wine the flavor of oak aging, even if it was probably not aged in barriques. So that is certainly very typical for Chardonnay. The texture, the richness, the oiliness on the palate also points to Chardonnay, in my opinion. It could be something else as well. It could be a Chenin from South Africa, or it could be, it could be lots of different things. But I actually think this feels like an Australian Chardonnay. entry level, and again, not very exciting. So this could really be from anywhere, but I'm going to say Australia, because Australia produces quite a lot of entry-level Chardonnay that tastes like this. But yeah, like I said, could be from other places as well. So let's have a look whether this is another Sauvignon Blanc or, I don't know. I don't think it's Sauvignon Blanc. I hope it's not. Again, that would be kind of embarrassing. So let's have a look. It is Chardonnay. And it is Deluxe, first of all, but it's from Australia. It's called 2021 Chardonnay Limestone Coast, and it's from the Deluxe range, apparently, whatever that really means. So what can I say? I was right this time, at least, and this was more typical for the grape variety, in my opinion, than the previous wine. So yeah. It's all right. So wine number 3 is a sparkling wine. I kind of knew that already. But what is it exactly? So it's kind of pale in color, which already suggests that it's maybe not a sparkling wine that has spent a lot of time on the lees after the second fermentation, if there was even a second fermentation in bottle. Usually wines that spend a long time on the lees get more golden color, and this is fairly pale yellow. More high-end wines would give me like a brioche baked goods character on the nose, and this doesn't exist here. It's quite straightforward. There's a little bit of apple character, a little bit of citrus flavors, a little bit maybe of that brioche notes, but very, very much in the background. It's kind of fresh without being acidic on the palate, and it doesn't have a long finish. It's a little bit bitter. It's kind of bland. Well, it's difficult to say what this is because it could be from lots of different places. It's not high end, so I don't think it's champagne. Champagne would have usually a little more pronounced brioche flavor coming through. It's not very aromatic, so I don't think this is a Riesling Sekt. Also, the acidity is too low for that. But yeah, apart from that, I don't know. It's not Prosecco. It could be an entry-level sparkling wine from different places. For me, it doesn't feel like Cava, but more like a Crémant, maybe a Crémant d'Alsace or a Crémant de Loire. Just an easygoing, light, white sparkling wine. I also wouldn't rate this very highly. I think this is like an average quality, 79 points. It's okay, but this is quite boring. I wouldn't complain if anyone would pour orange juice into this because, well, why not? So let's have a look what this is. It is a sparkling wine. That's pretty clear. It's a Crémant de Loire, Brut. And that's all there is on the label. Crémant de Loire Brut. Nothing else. It doesn't name a producer, it doesn't name, it just names the origin. Simplicity. By the way, I'm going to list all of the wines that I tasted below this video in the description. So if you didn't catch what I said, you can just look them up down there. The Crémant de Loire, for example. Not that you can find this wine with this description alone. You'd have to go to Lidl and then it sits there on the shelf. If you look very closely, you can see who bottled this or who made this. It's Cave Elisabeth in Saumur in the Loire. But yeah, they don't seem to be very proud of this. Otherwise, they might have put their name a little bit more prominently on the label. So, this looks like a rosé. So the color actually looks quite nice. It's pale pink. And it smells of strawberries and raspberries quite delicately. Yeah, again, there's not a lot going on. There's maybe a little bit of mintiness coming through as well, but definitely not flavor coming from prolonged yeast aging. It's quite one-dimensional. On the palate, there's not much going on. There's not really bitterness, no acidity, no body. It's a bit like, well, in one of those movies when you see a ghost moving through a person. That's kind of what it feels like having this wine going through my mouth. Yeah, you're just left with a cold feeling where it touched you. Yeah, I'm going to rate this 75 points. I think technically there's nothing wrong with it, but it's just very bland and boring. There's just not much going on. And where is it from? I don't really know. Where are the ghosts from? Transylvania? No, that's vampires. So yeah, I really don't know. I couldn't say. So let's have a look what this wine is. What's the story? All right, so this is the Arestel Cava Rosado from Spain, from northeastern Spain. And yeah, it's boring. But if you like rosé sparkling wines and you don't really want to spend too much, then this is not going to offend anyone, at least. So why not? But yeah, there's just not much there. So let's move on to wine number 5, and we are staying in rosé territory. This is pretty pale little rosé. So it smells kind of lactic. There's also strawberry flavor coming through. So yeah, it's a little bit like yogurt and strawberries, which could be a nice match, but it just isn't. You know, the fruit flavor is kind of, yeah, it doesn't seem clean. There seems to be an issue there. The quality of the fruit probably wasn't really great. And yeah, this just feels like a very mass-produced rosé wine, which it probably is. On the palate, it's quite watery. There's not much acidity there. It feels like there's a little bit of sugar coming through. And this slightly, yeah, like bruised flavor. Yeah, again, pointing to not the best fruit quality. Yeah, I don't know. Rosé is fairly affordable. You can get a good bottle of rosé at pretty low prices. So maybe, yeah, maybe spend a little more money and buy a bottle of rosé that is really fresh and crisp and lively, at least. This just feels flat. So I'm going to rate this 72 points. I think it's just, there's nothing completely wrong with it, but it's also really not something I would enjoy drinking. So yeah, pass. Rosé is produced everywhere these days, and this is not a wine that has a lot of character, kind of pointing to where it might be from. I don't think it feels like a New World wine just because it isn't very clean, and most large-scale New World wineries would be a bit more careful, maybe, making sure that the wine is a little bit more tidy. So I'm just going to say this is from the south of France, but it could be from many different places as well. So let's have a look what it is. Oh, definitely not the south of France. It is from the old world though. This is the Torre de Ferro from Dão in Portugal, the region south of the Douro Valley. And usually, I mean, there are some really great wines coming from that place, but this just isn't great. So let's move on to wine number 6, which is a red wine. That is clear. So the color is fairly light, which points to a light-skinned varietal. Maybe not Pinot because the color is too dark for that. Maybe Grenache or Sangiovese or Barbera. It's difficult with these entry-level wines because they're usually produced at a high yield, which also means that you dilute the color a little bit. You don't necessarily get as much extraction and as much color when you produce high crops. So yeah, let's just taste the wine. All right, this is quite interesting. It's very velvety. The acidity is pretty low. There's a little bit of bitterness there. Tannins don't really exist. So yeah, to me this also smells and tastes a little bit spicy and rustic. So that actually, together with the light color and this absence of acidity and polished tannins, points more to Grenache or Garnacha in my opinion. It's not a great Grenache though. I think this is kind of a 79 point wine in my opinion. And I would just say this is from the south of France, Languedoc-Roussillon, that part of the world. It's maybe a blend with other grape varieties as well, not just Grenache. And yeah, it's it's okay. So let's have a look whether I was right or not. Close. So this is the 2020 Agramont Garnacha old wine from Navarra in Spain, and beautiful label, by the way. You can hardly read the origin here because they just printed that on top of an existing label, I think. Yeah, Garnacha, that's the same grape variety, but we're obviously not in the south of France here. But yeah, I was close enough. It's also vegan, if that's something you're interested in. In wine, making vegan wine is actually really easy. You just cannot use certain products that you usually would use to clarify the wine. And that's it. It doesn't cost more money. It doesn't make it much more difficult for the winemaker to do his or her job. It's just something that you can put on the back label, and some people buy it just for that reason. Let's pause traveling through the wine world to talk about how you can stay safe while browsing the internet with today's sponsor, NordVPN. NordVPN allows you to search the internet privately so that no one can steal your data. It blocks malware and ads in order to protect your devices, and it also informs you if any of your data gets leaked. One of the greatest things about it is that it allows you to select your virtual location when accessing websites and streaming services. I'm often on the road traveling through wine regions, and sometimes I don't get to watch my favorite TV shows or movies. With NordVPN, I can just select a German server, and all of a sudden, all of my favorite shows reappear. I can also read articles or watch videos that are geo-restricted just by changing my virtual location. So whether you're a globetrotting wine enthusiast or just someone who values online security, NordVPN has got you covered. So check out NordVPN's 2 years plus 4 free months deal using my custom link, which is also down there in the description. It's risk-free with NordVPN's 30-day money-back guarantee. Thanks NordVPN for sponsoring this video. And now let's get back to the wines. So let's move on to wine number 7. 7 is quite a bit darker, I would say. It's kind of purple and deep in color. And the flavor is also much more concentrated and rich. It smells of blackberries, cherries, a little bit spicy as well. There's also a little bit of cassis flavor coming through. And there seems to be a little bit of oak influence as well. On the palate, it's very intense, grippy and rich. There's quite a lot of body there, but also really grippy, intense tannins. I kind of think this is a wine lots of people would enjoy just because it's juicy and fruit driven, and there's also structure there. If you have something on the table, if you're eating something while drinking this wine, the tannins will be a little bit more mellow. I think there's nothing wrong with this wine. So I'm going to rate this 84 points. I think it's quite juicy and delicious. For me, this feels very new world in style. It's very clean and pristine. Seems to be from a warm climate, from a region that is able to produce rich and concentrated red wines at a low, affordable price. So this could be Australia, this could be maybe South Africa, even though I think most South Africans would be a bit more structured and less fruit driven. Argentina certainly is also a candidate, and yeah, not all that many other countries. I think Chile would be a little more grippy and a little greener. As the Chardonnay was from Australia, I'm going to say this is from Argentina, and it feels like a Cabernet Sauvignon blend. So let's find out. Yes, it is from Mendoza in Argentina, and it's Cabernet Sauvignon blend. This is the 2019 Kaiken Terroir series Cabernet Sauvignon Malbec Petit Verdot from Los Cacayes, from Mendoza in Argentina. Yeah, I think this is juicy wine. I mean, it's definitely not the most complex and interesting wine, but it is really well made, so well done. All right, it's time for wine number 8, the last wine of the tasting, and it's a red wine with medium pronounced color. So less color than the previous wine, but more color than the one before. Okay, this is not very intense in flavor. It feels like it's opening up, but it's still There's not all that much going on here. It smells of ripe cherry. It smells of black tea. It feels like an European wine for sure. Not Northern European. It's from the south somewhere. It doesn't feel very Spanish in my opinion. It could be from the south of France, or it could be from Italy, obviously. The acidity is fairly high and the tannins are quite dry and grippy, which is for me more indicative of Italian winemaking. So this feels like a Sangiovese based wine. It could also be from the north, from Piedmont, but for me this is more Sangiovese in style. So I'm just going to say this might be a Chianti Classico. I don't think it's anything more than that. Not a Brunello or a Vino Nobile. It just feels a bit too simple. I'm going to rate this 80 points. I think it's just barely good. It's certainly not much more than that, but it's also not really terrible. I think there's actually some substance there, but I would like to have a little bit more meat on those bones. So let's have a look what it is. The last wine of the tasting. All right. Pretty good. Chianti, but it's a Reserva actually. So it should be, in my opinion, a little better in order to be Chianti Reserva, but anyways. So this is the 2019 Corte alla Mura Chianti Reserva. I don't know. How much did this cost? Probably less than 10 euros. And at that price point, it's fine, but it's not really all that good. And I've tasted many Chianti Classicos that were better than this. All right, let's wrap it up. Did I enjoy this tasting? No. Were there any wines here that I'm going to drink over dinner? No, but I mean, I have too much wine in my life anyways. Were there some decent qualities here that retail at a reasonable price? Yes, I'd say so. I mean, the best wine, in my opinion, was the Kaiken. That was just a really nice red wine, and I'm pretty sure lots of people really enjoy this stuff. I think out of the whites, the Chardonnay was the better one, but this is certainly nothing to rave about. And when it comes to the sparkling wines, this wine from the Loire was a little better, but I actually wouldn't want to drink that either. Sorry. So you get what you pay for, and if you look at this selection, you certainly don't have any flawed wines there. Nothing that is really disgusting, but also not really anything that is interesting or a lot of fun. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please like it down here. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. My question of the day is, which one is your favorite wine from Lidl? Comment down below. And if you don't drink wine from Lidl, comment down below too. I hope I see you guys again very soon. Until then, stay thirsty.